Hello, I'm I'm Andy Stanton, but in a way I am a bit like Father Christmas because I come bearing great gifts to you. And what are the great gifts? They are one great gift actually, and I'm going to read you one of my favourite quite Christmassy stories, The Elves and the Shoemaker. And guess what it's about? It's about some elves and a shoemaker. What does a shoemaker do? Makes shoes. What does an elves do? Elves. Right, let's have a look. The Elves and the Shoemaker. The Elves and the Shoemaker. Once upon a time, there lived a shoemaker and his wife. The man was a good shoemaker and he worked hard, yet he and his wife were very poor. As time went on, they grew poorer and poorer. Do you know why? Because they kept buying things off eBay. No, it doesn't say that. They just grew poorer and poorer. At last the day came when all the shoemaker had left was one piece of leather, just one rubbish little piece of leather. It would make only one pair of shoes. His last piece of leather. That evening, before he went to bed, the shoemaker cut out a pair of shoes from the leather. Then he left them on his workbench, all ready for him to sew next morning. As they were going upstairs to bed that night, the shoemaker spoke sadly to his wife. "Oh, I have used my last piece of leather," he said. "I have cut out one pair of shoes. Tomorrow I will sew them. When they are sold, I do not know what will become of us." They're so sad as they go up to bed. They're so sad and poor and no leather after the next day. The next morning, the shoemaker got up early and went into his workshop ready to make the shoes. On his bench, instead of the leather that he had left cut out, what? He found a pair of shoes already made. He was astonished and did not know what to think. Look at the lovely shoes. The shoemaker took the shoes in his hands and he looked carefully at them. Look at these. They were neatly made with not one bad stitch in them. He showed the shoes to his wife, who said, "I've never seen a pair of shoes so well made. They are perfect." The shoemaker and his wife could not think who'd sewn the shoes. Do you know who'd sewn the shoes? Yes, that's right. It was Ant and Dec. No, it probably wasn't, was it? Let's find out. The same morning, a lady came into the shop to buy a pair of shoes, and she's a posh one. Look at her. Look how posh she is. We'll give her a posh voice. The shoemaker showed her the pair he had found on his bench. She said, "I have never seen such well-made shoes." The lady tried on the shoes and they fitted her perfectly. She was so pleased with them that she paid the shoemaker twice the usual price. "Because I'm so blimmin' rich! I don't even care!" With the money, the shoemaker was able to buy leather for 2 pairs of shoes. Yes! That night, before he went to bed, he cut out the 2 pairs of shoes. He left them on his workbench, all ready for him to sew in the morning. Guess what? The next morning, shoemaker got up early, went into his shop to make the shoes, but he had no need to do so. On his bench, he found the 2 pairs of shoes already made. He took the shoes in his hands and looked carefully at them. Once more, he found that they were neatly made with not one bad stitch in them. "These are magnificent," he said to himself. "These are magnificent blimmin' shoes." That morning, a man came into the shop to buy some shoes. He was quite posh as well. Let's have a look at him. The shoemaker showed him the 2 pairs of shoes he had found on his bench. The man said, "I've never seen such well-made shoes." He was so pleased with them that he bought both pairs of shoes. "I don't even care, I've only got 2 feet, but I want 4 shoes because I'm so greedy and rich." He paid the shoemaker twice the usual price. "I don't care, I don't care. I just did a poo and it turned into a bar of gold. I'm so rich." With the money, the shoemaker was able to buy leather for 4 pairs of shoes. That night before he went to bed, he cut out 4 pairs of shoes. He left them on his workbench, all ready for him to sew in the morning. I bet he's secretly hoping by now that the shoes accidentally magically get made again. Oh, he's in luck. The next morning, the shoemaker got up early and went into his shop to make the shoes, but he had no need to do so. On his bench, he found the 4 pairs of shoes already made. This is amazing. He took the shoes in his hand and looked carefully at them. Once again, they were excellent, just really good shoes. And so it went on. Every night, the shoemaker cut out some shoes and left them on his workbench. Every morning, he found the shoes all neatly made, excellent shoes, lovely shoes. Many rich customers came to his shop to buy these perfect shoes. So in time, the shoemaker and his wife became rich. And let's have a look at all the rich people in the shop. I want 1,000,000 pairs of shoes, please. Give me 1,000,000. I want 1,000, 100 billion, gazillion, trillion, trillion, billion, billy, William pairs of shoes. I want so many shoes. I'm just going to buy these shoes and eat the shoes. I'm going to buy these shoes. I'm so rich. I'm just going to buy the shoes and throw the shoes in the sea. I don't care. La-di-da-di-da. La-di-da-di-da. La-la-la. We want shoes. We'll give you all the money. How much do you want for this pair of shoes? £1. I'm going to give you £1,000,000. I'm going to make you rich. So the shoemaker and his wife got very rich, is what I'm trying to tell you. Yet the shoemaker and his wife, they did have no idea who made these perfect shoes for them. One evening, not long before Christmas, when the shoemaker had finished cutting out shoes, he went to his wife. We still do not know who sews the shoes for us, he said. Shall we stay up tonight to see who it is that helps us? Look how cosy and Christmassy it is. It's nice, isn't it? It's really nice. Look at that. They've got plates on the wall so that they can eat their dinner on the wall. Now, his wife thought that this was a very good idea to stay up and see what happened. So she lit a candle and they went into the workshop. They hid themselves in a corner of the room behind some clothes which were hanging there. Then the shoemaker and his wife waited quietly and watched to see what would happen. We're so crafty. We'll hide ourselves behind these clothes that are hanging here. I light a candle. Yeah, I light a candle. Right. For a long time, nothing happened. Then, just as the clock struck 12, bong! The door of the workshop opened quietly. In came... It was Ant and Dec! Look, it's Ant and Dec! Oh no, it's two tiny elves. In came two tiny elves. What a surprise. I never could have guessed that it was going to be some elves, could you? From the front page, from the front cover and the title. In came two tiny elves. They were dressed in old clothes and their feet were bare. They didn't even have any shoes themselves. They did not see the shoemaker and his wife who were hiding in the corner watching them. Look at their rubbish clothes. We haven't even got any clothes. I mean, we have got clothes, but we haven't got any shoes. We're rubbish. The elves jumped onto the workbench. The elves jumped onto the workbench and they took up the shoes that were cut out. They began to stitch and sew and hammer the shoes. They worked so neatly and so quickly that the shoemaker could hardly believe his eyes. The elves did not stop for a moment until all the cut-out shoes were finished. Yeah, we are the best. Let's make the shoes. Let's make the shoes. Let's just do it. That's what we do. We are the shoe elves. Elf shoes. Shoe elves. Elf shoes. Then they ran quickly away. Boing! The next morning, at breakfast, the shoemaker asked his wife, how can we thank these little elves who have made us so rich and so happy? I know what we can do. Oh, that's a bit posh, wasn't it? I know what we can do, said his wife. We can make them new clothes and shoes. Their own clothes are ragged and their feet are bare. Have a little breakfast. I wonder what he's having for breakfast. He's quite rich by now, so probably they're just eating some money now as well. During the evenings that followed, the shoemaker and his wife began to make new clothes for the elves. Isn't that nice? So they're doing it. The elves did it for them, now they're doing it for the elves. The shoemaker chose the softest leather he could find. He cut out two of the tiniest little pairs of shoes you have ever seen. Look at them, they're so tiny, you can't even see them. There you go, look, tiny. Then he stitched the shoes as carefully as ever he could. He was very careful not to get it all wrong. The shoemaker's wife cut out 2 white shirts, 2 small green jackets and 2 little pairs of trousers to match. She sewed them with tiny stitches. She made 2 little caps, each with a feather in it. She also knitted 2 pairs of wee white stockings. That doesn't mean that the stockings were made of wee. It's like wee meaning little. 2 pairs of wee white stockings. Yeah, look at her. Yeah, these are so tiny. It's fun though. Right. By Christmas Eve, the tiny clothes and shoes were finished. Look at the tiny little clothes and the shoes. They're tiny. They're tiny. They're too small. The shoemaker cleared the leather and the tools from his workbench. He and his wife laid their presents on the bench instead of the usual work. Then they hid themselves again, just as they had done before, and they waited to see what the elves would do. Just as the clock struck 12, boing, bong, the door opened quietly, as before. The 2 elves came running in. They still wore old clothes and their feet were blue with cold. They jumped onto the bench, ready to get to work at once, but there was no leather on the bench. There was only the tiny clothes.
Oh, what are these? Oh, they're just outside. Look, oh, what is going on? Oh, these are nice. Oh, I don't know what. Oh, I'm so happy. Oh, this is astonishing. Oh, this is astonishing. Oh, I'm not tiny. Oh, I've never been so amazed. Oh.
The elves were astonished, just like I said, at first, and then they were delighted, just like I said. In no time at all, they were out of their old clothes, and here's a picture of them in the nude. No, not really. They don't show that one. We got all nude, and then they quickly put these ones on in the picture. That's lucky, isn't it? So you don't have to see the other drawing. Then, talking and laughing, they dressed themselves in the beautiful new clothes, the green jacket and trousers, the white shirt and stockings, the soft leather shoes and the little caps with the feathers
that nodded as they laughed. Yay! Yeah.
In their delight, the little elves skipped and jumped over chairs and benches. La da 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 da. Then they joined hands and danced around as they sang. Now we are boys so fine to see. We no longer need cobblers be. Now we are boys so fine to see. We no longer need be cobblers be. We don't need to be cobblers, hurrah! At last they danced happily out of the door. And then they were run over by a bus. Oh no, that's not real. That was just me. The last page really says the shoemaker and his wife never saw the little elves again. But from that time on, good luck was always with them. They were rich and happy for the rest of their lives. And what are they saying to each other? The wife is saying, yeah, I do miss the elves a bit though. I do miss the elves. And the shoemaker's saying, shut up, we're rich. And that's the end of the story. It's quite Christmassy because some of it happened at Christmas. And thank you very much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this latest fantastic instalment of your Christmas Advent calendar, and I wish you a merry shoemaker and a merry new elf. Happy Christmas.